and welcome back to my channel where I'm going to cover the Wizard's War Magic class specialization from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, providing a brief description of the subclass, as well as explain and set up the various features gained. The War Magic Arcane Tradition produces some of the more battle-hardened wizards of any of the arcane colleges, as these wizards specialize in both offensive and defensive capabilities, more so than other schools. As a result, war mages, as wizards of the school are called, are able to better tactically control the field of battle due to their strengths in both areas of the field. And with the means to turn an enemy's magic back on its own caster, it can be quite tricky to get a proper hit in on a war mage. The information sheet also adds a few more examples and explanations that may give you a good idea as to how well the arcane tradition works when in battle. But let's move into some other details for now. Wizards are intended to be the kind of class that flirts a little with magic before they choose their direction of interests, or otherwise known as their class specialization. And as a result of this, the wizard is a class that gains their arcane tradition at level 2, putting them in the middle of the group when it comes to gaining their specializations. So I'm going to go ahead and upgrade our level 1 wizard here to a level 2 wizard and select War Magic as our school. That now sets us up to be able to start going over our various features. And the first feature your character is going to gain is called Arcane Deflection, which allows your character to potentially avert an incoming attack or make a save they initially failed by using their reaction after having been hit by an attack or failing a saving throw. When you choose to react to an incoming attack, you can temporarily boost your AC against that attack by +2, but if you're going to attempt to change a failed save into a success, you can add +4 to the roll. However, neither of these take advantage of the automation that Fantasy Grounds can provide, because you first have to actually fail the saving throw or get hit by the attack. This means that we can't make use of that automation if the DM is going to follow these guidelines as strictly as possible. However, I am going to show you how to set up the effects just in case you get a DM that happens to be a little bit more lenient. So let's go ahead and add our capability here to our action sheet, and I'm going to call this War Magic for the group. I'm going to create a new effect here, and I'm going to copy in an effect I already have. It's going to be on your own character, and it's going to expire on the next roll, because we don't want that to stick around any other roll after the one that actually makes this save, or changes the stats. Oops, I just realized that there's an error in my syntax here. I have a comma here when this should actually be a semicolon. So it will say Arcane Deflection, semicolon. So I had two errors. AC colon 2, semicolon, save colon 4. And that's going to allow this particular feature to make an adjustment to our armor class and to our saving throws. So let's see how this effect will actually work if you have a dungeon master that's lenient. And let's say that this vampire is going to attack our character. We will see that our AC will be able to increase by 2, and our save will be able to increase by 4. So let's go ahead and make that attack. What we should see here is the effect goes away, which it does, and we have a defense effects here. Now this vampire is quite powerful, so it still hit. It didn't help us at all. But the idea here is that if you have a DM that will allow you to make use of that automation, you can automatically add this effect to your character and have it apply. And the same thing would go for a saving throw if you need to be making a saving throw in this particular case. So if I throw that back onto our character and then I go ahead and make a saving throw, it goes away and it will automatically add the 4 to the total. But if you have a dungeon master who is going to follow the guidelines as they are written, then what's going to have to happen is this, is the vampire is going to make their attack first. That's going to be a hit. Now they rolled a 15. Your armor class is actually an 11. Right there, I know adding 2 more points isn't going to help. Because it's only going to bring our AC up to a 13, which means they still hit, which is unfortunate. But essentially what would happen here is that you would go, okay, I'm going to use Arcane Deflection. However, this isn't going to change anything because it's only going to bring my AC up to a 13. That ain't going to help. And the same thing can go for a saving throw. Let's say you've been asked to make a saving throw, an intelligence one in this case, for example. Well, that's a 20. Let's say that somehow still manages to fail. You then say, I'm going to use Arcane Deflection and add +4 to that total, bringing me up to 30. Okay, now that may have changed it to a success. And the last thing that I want to point out about this particular feature is that if you do in fact make use of this reaction, you will be unable to cast any spells until the end of your next turn, unless it's a cantrip. So you'd be able to use something like Firebolt, but you wouldn't be able to use something like Chromatic Orb, for example. So you would essentially be skipping the next combat round, making use of more powerful spells, if you will, outside of a cantrip. Doesn't mean you can't use your quarterstaff. You can still do that if you happen to have one, or whatever weapon your character happens to be carrying. You can do other things, maybe use an ability, do something, some other form of action. You just can't use a spell. Also at Wizard level 2, your character gains the Tactical Wit feature, giving your character a bonus to your initiative based on your intelligence modifier, and this is something that is a permanent change. And there are two ways we can go about making this adjustment. The first is going ahead and modifying our initiative roll here with the +4 bonus. That would indicate a permanent change, but then you're going to be questioning where did the extra modifier come into play. You won't necessarily always know. A different approach is to make use of an effect, and I actually like this approach because it's a little bit more informative. So I'm going to copy Tactical Wit into our character sheet, copy our group, and move this particular effect down to here, or feature down to here, and then I'm going to add a new effect. And for this one, I'm going to make use of this feature, and I'm noticing that I have a syntax issue here as well. This should be a semicolon. And what this does is it will automatically calculate what my intelligence modifier is, which is what is going to manipulate our initiative in this particular case, and apply that to the initiative. It doesn't expire. It can only be added to your own character, and it never expires after that roll. So it's always going to be something that's going to be there. And the minute your character is dropped into the actual combat tracker here, you can drag this onto your character. Now, anytime you are asked to roll initiative, it will automatically add a +5 total because you have a +1 initiative here, and you have your +4 here. This is a better way to do it because now there's information built into the initiative roll to state how you had that +4 bonus. At Wizard level 6, your character is going to gain access to the Power Surge feature, and it will allow your character to store up magical energy made up of spells that were successfully cancelled by the Dispel Magic or Counterspell spells, of which for each spell cancelled or countered, your character will gain 1 Power Surge. When your character deals damage with a spell, be it an object or a creature, they will be able to expend 1 of your Power Surge charges and do additional force damage equal to half of your character's wizard level to that particular creature or object. However, unlike some features that regain uses when your character would complete a long or a short rest, in this case, your character will actually lose all but 1 surge charge during a long rest, and will only regain a single surcharge, if you will, if and only if your character has no surges at all when taking a short rest. Your character will be able to hold a maximum number of surge charges equal to your character's intelligence modifier, and to clear up a few small points of confusion, I'm going to provide you an example. Let's say your character has a +4 intelligence modifier. In fact, our example character does. Then your character can hold up to a total of 4 surge charges. When your character completes a long rest, they will lose all but 1 of their Power Surge charges, whereas when they complete a short rest, they will lose none, if they were actually holding on to 1 or more charges. But if your character has no charges at the time of a short or long rest, then you'll regain 1 surge charge, so that your character will only have 1 Power Surge charge to start after that rest. I've been thinking over how the best way to track this, and I think the approach is going to be something that we've used for other power groups specific to tracking surge charges. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to drag this feature onto our character sheet, and I'm going to create a new group called Power Surge. And this is going to be an abilities group. I don't think the ability is going to come into play, but it does make use of your intelligence modifier here. And I'm going to set it up as 1 because regardless as to whether I complete a long rest or whether I complete a short rest, I always end up having 1 Power Surge if I happen to have none, or if I happen to have more than 1 when it comes to the long rest. But let's say that I have managed to successfully deflect 3 additional spells. Well, now my total number of power surges is 4. So what I can then do is actually say, okay, I'm going to burn one of these. And then when I do that, I'm going to tick this off. I still have to add the effect that we need here, but now it's telling me that of the 4 surges I have used one. At a later point in time, I can go back when it's less hectic and cancel out one of those surge charges, if you will, to reduce it to 3 and eliminate the one that I've used. Now I still have 3 left. The other option you could do is simply leave it at 4 and then simply track how many you do in fact use throughout the course of the day. But when you complete that rest, you should reduce it to 1 and just get rid of any check marks that might be there. This isn't necessarily the best approach because there is a little bit of manual intervention required, but I think it's the best option that we might have when it comes to Fantasy Grounds itself. Now, I'm going to go ahead and add the damage effect here. So this is what I want to call it. I'm going to call it Power Surge, semicolon, DMG, colon, and then I'm going to do an HLVL. And actually, I'm going to do it HWIZ. It's going to be linked to your character's wizard level. And it's on yourself. Now, how is this going to work? Oops, I don't want characters. I want combat tracker. Let's say it's our turn. I'm going to move our wizard back up to an initiative of 21 so that we're at the top. And I'm going to set it up so that our character goes. Let's say I'm going to attack this vampire. And I've got a couple of surges that I captured earlier in the day. So let's say that I have a total of 3. And what I can do is this. When I attack this vampire, I'm going to do that now. Let's say, is this going to be with a spell? Yes, this is going to be with a spell. So I'm going to use Burning Hands, that actual spell. I'm going to switch this to combat and actions so that I gain access to that particular feature. Where'd my spells go? Oh, I haven't had them prepared. This is why I always say prepare your spells, because wizards are very finicky when it comes to that. I'm just going to select them all for now. Now they're there. I'm going to make my cast when it comes to Burning Hands. Now, in this particular case, because Burning Hands has a half save, they managed to succeed, which means they will still suffer damage, but they will only suffer half damage. I'm then going to choose to use a Power Surge and apply this effect to myself. And for some reason, that didn't work. Right, I forgot. You need to actually spell out the word wizard in this particular case. So if you're doing it for cleric, it would be cleric. If you're doing it for bard, it would be bard. You actually have to spell out the whole class in reference to this. It all has to be within the square brackets, and that H has to be in front. Now, back to our example. I'm going to apply this effect to our character, and you can see here that we now have 3 additional points of damage, and that's because our character is level 6. I am then going to roll the damage for Burning Hands. Our effect is going to go away, our damage is going to get rolled, and then they're going to suffer half whatever the total was out of that damage because they made their saving throw. Now, the same thing would happen for Chromatic Orb, for example. This is an attack roll, so that actually, I forgot. When you cast spells, you have to retarget the target if they did a save on their saving throw. All right, so in this case, that's a hit. Once again, I'm going to use a Surge. I am then going to add the effect to my character, and then I'm going to roll damage. And in this case, they didn't save, and I did 16 points of damage to the vampire. Now, just for a point of clarity, you can only do this once per turn. So if you gain the ability at some point in the future to be able to cast multiple spells during the same turn, you can only apply this Power Surge, if you will, to one of those castings. That includes cantrips. So if you cast a cantrip and then Burning Hands because you may have gained that capability, you will be unable to do so in the sense of using this particular feature. Let's say you added it to the Firebolt. You wouldn't be able to do it for Burning Hands when you use that later on that turn. I forgot to set up our damage type when it came to Power Surge. That's what it was. At Wizard level 10, your character will gain the Durable Magic feature that allows your character to gain a +2 to their AC and any saving throw while concentrating on a spell. Some DMs will allow the saving throw bonus to apply to a concentration check, some won't, but according to the rules around concentration, your character makes a constitution-based saving throw, so this means the +2 will apply to that concentration check as well. So if you've got a DM that is arguing against that, refer to the concentration capability within the player's handbook around spellcasting, and they will have to make that realization on their own. As such, this means that we can simplify our effect that I had planned for our feature. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and add durable to our action sheet here, durable magic that is. I'm then going to copy this down into our war magic group and just minimize this for now. Now the effect that I want to create here is going to be slightly cheaty in the sense that I'm going to ensure that this goes away if we lose our concentration, because that's what we want. It otherwise isn't going to expire. So as long as we're concentrating, that's what this bracket C bracket means after this save :2 semicolon portion here. As long as we're concentrating, this should remain in place on our character. So let's go ahead and actually see if we can test that. So I've gone ahead and added a new spell here. I'm going to say that I've cast this, so let's target the vampire again. Yep, good. I'm going to cast that. Let's see if it hits. No, they succeeded, but let's say it hit. So I've done the damage to them, and then I'm concentrating on that effect. In theory, if I get hit, this comes into play. So I'm now concentrating on a spell. That means that I have the ability to add durable magic automatically to my character. So it will increase my armor class and it will increase my save resistances. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to forward the turn to the vampire here. And I know that the Mind Spike has some effects here, but I'm not going to worry about them for now. I'm going to attack with that vampire for our wizard. So there we go. Now I'm targeted. Now in theory, whenever I'm hit and suffer damage, it should automatically trigger concentration rolls, which it does. And in this particular case, Mind Spike expired on the effect because we failed. And because of that, so yeah, we failed the saving throw here. That means that our +2 worked, but it wasn't good enough to keep everything in place. So I'm going to apply this effect again and this effect again, and you'll see that they both got canceled, which is really what I was trying to showcase there, is that both of them got canceled. And I'm going to do some more damage here. Let's see if I can get a successful. Oh, that's going to be another failure. Sigh. Might take a couple of rounds. Give me a second here. Let's go for it again. No, still going away. But regardless, you can see that we're failing. Yeah, we're rolling a 4, a 6. Wow, we're rolling really low. Why is it rolling a D6? No, it's not. It's rolling a D20. I just double-checked that. And I finally got something over 10, which means I succeeded. But you can see that the bonuses were being applied to the concentration check. Each time it rolled, we were just rolling really, really crappy. And that's why I say this effect is a little bit cheaty. It's because it takes advantage of the fact that both of those concentration checks can be there. And when we drop the concentration effect, then the other feature effect goes away as well. So I think that's the best way to do it. And finally, at Wizard level 14, your character is going to gain the Deflecting Shroud feature, giving you a means to do additional damage whenever a character makes use of the Arcane Deflection feature. Now, if you recall, Arcane Deflection allowed you to increase your armor class by 2 or your saving throw by 4 in the event that you failed your saving throw or were hit during an attack. When you make use of Arcane Deflection, you now gain the ability to choose up to 3 creatures who are all within 60 feet of your character and visible to your character, and do force damage equal to half of your character's wizard level in retaliation. And it doesn't matter whether Arcane Deflection changes an attack into a miss or whether it changes a saving throw into a success from a failure. This always applies, which this should actually be a relatively easy feature to configure. So let's go ahead and set up our character or our effect there in our group. I'm going to add a new effect here. I'm going to call this Deflecting Shroud. Semicolon, DMG colon. Actually, no, this isn't going to work this way because we're not doing additional damage to anything else. Now that I think about that, I actually want to get rid of that effect. I want to just create a damage effect. And I want to set this up to make use of our wizard level. So it's WIZ, I believe is what we're looking for. There we go. And I want to add a multiplier here of 0.5. And the damage type is going to be force damage. FORCE, which I actually forgot to set on something else. But as we can see here, we have 7 force damage. Now, whenever we are asked to make use of the arcane deflection, so let's say we had an attack that hit our character, then what we would be able to do is automatically drop the damage, oops, I don't want to drag the whole thing, onto whatever creatures we wish to select. We only get to do it for 3 creatures though. And that really completes everything that we have to do when it comes to the War Wizard. And wizards in general, in my opinion, are very powerful glass cannons and generally don't last overly long if the fight turns into close combat. However, this class specialization does provide a means to reduce some of the fragility of earlier levels of a given wizard until they're able to finally cast spells that take out large numbers of creatures in short order, which generally starts when a wizard is able to start casting level 3 spells. I'd like to see this variant of the wizard played, but for some reason most players I've DM'd for have avoided this particular class specialization, in fact have avoided wizards. And the few games I have seen over the last few years, I've not really seen this particular one used. However, this does bring us to the end of this particular video. I hope you found it useful and informative, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I wish to thank you for taking the time to watch this particular video. I hope you found it informative and useful to familiarizing yourself with Fantasy Grounds in general, and that you had fun in the process. If you found the video useful and you liked the content of the particular video, go ahead and click that like button to let me know. And if you have any questions specific to the topic covered by this particular video, or just have some comments in general, please feel free to post something in the comments section, and I will do my best to respond to any questions that are asked. Additionally, I do release content quite regularly, and it's generally specific to Fantasy Grounds or 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons at this time. So if you'd like to be notified when new videos come out, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell to ensure that notification is sent to you when I release a new video.